I'm your host, Sheldon Brow, a fisherman's son turned banker, turned mortgage pro, turned Fintech founder. Finance Village is a podcast that caters to both financial professionals and consumers, featuring conversations that challenge and engage experts right across the industry. And our show's ultimate goal is to enhance the financial literacy of consumers while providing financial professionals with the best resources to serve their clients effectively. It takes a village of experts to ensure the best care for our clients, and Finance Village is here to help build that village. This is brought to you by Castflex Media, a podcast production company. And if you want to start or have a podcast that you want to make better, Castflex has the flex you need to make it easy and awesome. So I'm your unconventional and crazy host, Sheldon Brow, and I've got more than 15 years in finance, where I started in the trenches of big bank call centers, taking 50 to 80 calls per day and more than 100,000 calls during my call center at the big bank's career, hearing consumers' daily questions and confusion, and working in many different roles in big banks after that, until I eventually got a job overseeing Atlantic Canada for specialized and complex lending for a certain big bank, where I was tasked to go out and develop lending business from independent financial advisors like Jason. And I fell in love with what independent advisors do, because I only ever knew the silo that the big banks taught me. We've got three wonderful guests who are objectively awesome, because I know that they're all awesome myself, and you can trust my word. I'm bringing on great guests. Stacy Brooks, I believe, showing up on the top right, and is executive in the financial advisory space. She's got her certified health insurance specialist designation, as well as a certified exit planning advisor, and usually utilizing these credentials within her executive roles in big companies like Manulife and Financial Horizons, and a great strategic advisor and resource to leadership in the financial space, and highly capable of engaging and inspiring advisors to identify practices, innovations, programs, and any way they can improve their practice and think about the future of advice. We've got Jason Pereira, the infamous, who has won more awards and recognitions than I have even remotely enough time to list, including globally. One of the most well-known financial advisors in Canada, and an expert in the Fintech space with multiple podcasts in advice and Fintech. And you can check out many things what Jason has going on at jasonpereira.ca. Love them or hate them, if you are not following Michael Kitces in the US and Jason Pereira in Canada, are you even in the financial advisory space? Maybe not, but that's just my opinion. He is senior partner of Woodgate Financial and recently inducted into, what was it, the Financial Planners Hall of Fame, was it, Jason?
No. I was made a fellow of FP Canada, so closest thing you have to in Canada. Yeah.
And then Keegan Francis, software and blockchain developer, co-founder of the Atlantic Blockchain Company, as well as Go Full Crypto. Don't be deceived by that notion. He's not suggesting anyone to go full crypto, but he's in pursuit of becoming a full-fledged financial advisor with a safe and sober view of crypto and Bitcoin, and one of the most informed places you can get advice in this area in Canada, if you ask me. And by that, I mean, for those of us that are intent on investing in crypto or following his journey, his newsletter is balanced, intelligent, witty, and forward-thinking. And there's a lot of other kinds of folks out there and YouTube nerds and I even know one of my close personal friends who's in finance that would say, hey, go refinance your house and go buy Bitcoin. Keegan is not that guy. He's just for those that want to be on that journey and maybe have a little bit of entanglement with it. He gives that good, safe, balanced view. So if there's any corrections on any introductions, I'd like anyone to go ahead and make them now.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Okay, good.
I'm not as awesome as you say I am, but continue.
Okay. That's the only part I got wrong. I'm good. So the title of our first podcast, Future-Proofing Financial Advice, the Land Grab and the Shockwave. We'll start out by asking each of you, and I'm going to start with Stacy, then jump over to Jason and Keegan. Is my podcast title an embellishment of just some, half knowledgeable mortgage broker? Is it a reasonable thing for me to say? It's my personal thesis. I've been talking about it for years. Is it actually dangerous for super complacent financial advisors and / professionals out there that are leaving operations very conventional and not seeking to participate in the advisory space in new ways, whether it's processes, whether it's levels of human engagement, how many times you're touching base, technology and innovation adoption? Can some be blockbustered, or am I just totally out to lunch?
It depends, whether we think so or we don't think so. We're right either way, but it all depends on the perspective of the advisor. I think as we look at advisors of the futures, I think there's a lot of advisors who may have a conventional way of thinking that maybe leaving a lot on the table by not evolving, at least in some areas of their practice, to engage with clients. We advisors can't make the assumption that because clients are of a certain age, they're not, evolved in terms of technology trends or information, and are not curious to want to explore different opportunities in how they're being serviced or how they're being served, or what they may have thought of as conventional thinking 10 years ago or pre-pandemic. They may be looking differently now because access to information is 24/7. So I don't think it's a bit of a land grab, but I think it's maybe an aha type of title for advisors to really think about, what is necessary for them to continuously evolve and move forward with their clients going forward. So, if you're not adopting technology in some way or form in your business, you're missing out. If you're not incorporating some type of digital investment tools in your practice, I think you're missing out. I think if you're not engaging in probably strategic alliances with other professionals where you may not be an expert, I think you're missing out. I think if you're not rethinking your business model in terms of understanding where your area of expertise is and what other areas or gaps are missing in your servicing model and finding ways to fill those gaps, I think you're missing out. So I think as a way of looking at the situations, there's a lot that maybe some traditional advisors are leaving on the table, but younger advisors are utilizing some of these gaps to be the foundation of how they're building their business and moving forward, and adopting technology as a way of automating certain skill sets or certain tasks in the business so they can use their time having real conversations with clients.
Well, and just before you go, Jason, I just want to touch on a couple of things Stacy mentioned. First of all, thank you for mentioning the collaborating with others, because it's going to be a constant topic on Finance Village. It's part of the whole thesis of Finance Village and the technology that I'm building. It's good to mention that we can often quickly judge people. You take someone like my brother who's, he's a drywaller, and he'll get frustrated pretty quick with technology. And I've seen him come an astounding distance in 1 year, where I thought he would never, ever bother with a lot of the stuff that he's doing, integrating with QuickBooks, tracking his receipts and all that stuff basic. We definitely project that onto older people. There's this lovely lady upstairs that's, got to be, over 70, and she does a lot more than I would have anticipated when we ended up talking about kind of what things she's doing on her iPad. And even take somebody like my wife, who's from Guyana, who, she wasn't like super savvy on computers when she came here. And I heard about Chat GPT from her, which I was embarrassed about. I was like, how did I not know this until my wife told me? And then she goes on, she's doing some volunteering for the Commonwealth Health Organization. That's like this big, health volunteering thing. And she goes on to these meetings, uses otter.ai to record all the notes, then takes that and tells Chat GPT to summarize the notes for her. I'm like, okay, I'm falling behind my wife here. Like I gotta catch up, and people are gonna continue. And I hate to be corny and go down the Chat GPT part, but things are changing real quick. But back to that same thing, Jason. So I guess your kind of suggestion, Stacey, is they may not be blockbuster, maybe as a little bit of embellishment in my title, but there's certainly an opportunity to thrive instead of survive.
Absolutely. Plenty of opportunity to thrive. You just have to have the right mindset and an intentional approach to how you want to move forward.
Okay, and Jason, you're not as polite as Stacy. Are you willing to say that some of these guys are going to be blockbuster? They're going to be specced, and they're going to be scratching their heads wondering what happened to my business?
I'll get to that point in a second, but let's just be frank. When people say, "Oh, I hate technology," whatever, great. Give up your electricity, your television, your dishwasher, your car, and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, you're using technology in every interaction you have. You're just drawing a line as to which technologies you're willing to learn about, right? So what you're really saying is, I don't want to learn, I don't want to change. That is an obstacle created by the human mind, because it is basically all about will. If you want to learn about it, you will learn about it. And I've seen people at all age groups basically just take on new learnings. Let's just give ourselves a little bit more. The only obstacle is us, full stop, and complacency. So that's the first piece. Now, will they be blockbuster? Let's just talk about this. Like, at the end of the day, what drives me crazy about this industry more than anything is that for some reason, a lot of advisors like to act like it's not like any other business. Every other business out there has to worry about increasing costs, shrinking margins, increasing competition, you name it. And they got to worry about making their business as efficient as possible to basically maximize profitability based off of the competitions they're facing. Yet somehow this industry, and I think it's largely in Canada based around the fact that we have embedded compensation in almost everything. And we've had things like deferred sales charge until recently. We're still fighting that fight on the seg fund basis. The reality is it's been too easy to hide the comp. And because of that, our distribution systems are incredibly fat and expensive compared to a lot of what I see out of the US. So it's just been too easy for too long. But the reality is that you can't fight transparency. That is the long-term trend of everything. So that is what's been going on around the world. So basically, we are no different than any other business. And I always say, like, the best piece of advice I could ever give any advisor is think like an entrepreneur and stop acting like an employee. And what I mean by that is, yes, you have employee advisors who basically have no say over what they do, but most advisors have a large swath of availability, of freedom over what they can and cannot do. And more often than not, even those who call themselves advisors like to complain to their dealers and MGAs to solve all their problems for them. Show me another business owner who basically complains to someone else to solve their problems for them. That doesn't work. Like, take responsibility for your own business first and foremost. And as for like the blockbustering and evolution of this is an ongoing process, right? We turn the clock and have people travel back in time to the 1960s, 70s, 80s, whatever you want to call it. And it was, hey, my value proposition was I give you access to markets. That's the value proposition. And I'm going to charge a hefty commission for that. Then, you know what? Things like discount brokers came out and suddenly access became democratized. And I hate that word because it usually means it's usually a scam, but we'll get to that later. The point is that
I hear you so often.
Oh, it's so often. Democratization is like, oh, really? You're just trying to pass
I
off
avoid
the crap
that
no one else
and
would
the
take.
word disrupt. I avoid those two words entirely.
But there is validity to this one, right? And the reality is that information and access to markets became commoditized. Great. So advisors moved on to basically starting to worry about portfolio management, not just order execution. So it's about the advice piece there. And of course, there's a subculture. Now that's become largely commoditized. Robo advisors are super cheap. Single ticket ETFs exist. The next thing, and the continued evolution is more and more towards the financial planning aspects of the business, which is really where it should have been in the first place. Because why am I telling anyone what to do with their money until I know what it is they want out of life and how to get them there, and really use the money as a means of execution, right? So you're seeing that slowly become more of a focus around the world, less so in Canada because various factors, banks, we can get into that. But the reality is that is becoming more and more the focus. And as that happens, the reality is that it used to be like Kitsis is benchmarked 10 hours to produce a financial plan. I'm working with the software that utilizes artificial intelligence to try to reduce this. And let's just say that number gets down to 3 to 4. What do we do with the rest of that time? Well, the engineering answer is I can handle more clients. But in reality, no one wants a commoditized experience. No one wants to call up their advisor and the advisor says, let me look you up for a minute and see who it is you are. No, they want you to know who their kids are, what their needs are, what the last conversation was, the fact that they got sick a week ago, you name it, right? They want to know all of that. So the reality is that what's going to happen is that we continue, this business continues to evolve down the path of becoming more about, basically, lack of a better term, family office concierge style services with a large amount of breadth, and even more so beyond that, into the psychology and therapy realms, where basically, most financial planners who are good at this will tell you they're like untrained psychologists. And all the behavioral finance gurus are saying the same thing. Like, this is going to become a big centerpiece because everything else, all the heavy lifting stuff we do, like the financial planning and the trade execution, all the stuff that used to take forever, is going to take minutes to hours in the future because it's all process oriented and can be easily digitized. What cannot be easily digitized is the interpersonal human relationship with the client, and the fact that we can be the ones who get them over. The computer told you to do this, and here's the psychological barrier you have. How do we work with those confines to get you to either modify this or get you past that psychological confine? That's going to be that's going to be the future. And it's not even the future. It's the present for many of us who are operating this way already. And, the reality is, unfortunately, it's a very low bar out there. So client complacency of first of all, lack of client understanding of what is possible and what proper planning, proper services is first and foremost the problem, right? This is why so many, the people out there online will basically bash advisors because they're always thinking of the lowest common denominator advisor, which is generally the general experience in the market. When you get to the level that you have people like myself and many others, including people at the Financial Planning Association of Canada, who's an organization I helped co-found, the reality is when you get to that level of client intimacy and service and actual just helping people self-actuate, there is no competition from automation. There is no commoditization of that product. But clients have to understand that that is possible and available to them. So it's their lack of understanding, it's complacency in a lot of ways, and it's the fact that they have a relationship that often becomes an obstacle. But if I used to work with an advisor who the only thing he cared about was maintain the relationship to be as strong as possible. That was his defense mechanism for making up for inabilities in other areas. So are you going to be blockbustered? Look, it's a slow moving animal, but like all things, it's basically, change happens very slowly at first and then all at once. So yeah, congratulations. Maybe you're an advisor in your 40s and 50s and things are cruising and making good money and you have a book that's worth X amount of dollars. Like, let's see what happens when you approach retirement in the next 10 to 15 years. Let's see, how many buyers are interested in your book that has no CRM, that has no digital files, that has, basically no process, that just basically still is holding on to whatever version of hidden commissions we have on mutual funds in the future. Good luck to you.
And for the consumers that want to use a robo-advisor purely in the future, well, maybe they're not interested in that level of human connection, then they'll just date a robot. I will say that
people will self-select, man. People will self-select into what they're comfortable with. But the knowledge of what is available out there will continue to grow as the people who are doing the good jobs continue to basically become more of a norm.
Well, you're right. I mean, even an ice cream stand, literally, because I've been helping somebody with like this tiny little business plan they're doing. Even an ice cream stand has to consider technology. I'll
make one last point before we finish up on this. And it's like, okay, so let's say you're the advisor who doesn't think you're going to be a blockbuster, who thinks you're going to basically just ride this out in the last 20 years to look like the next 20 years, or next vice versa. Like the reality is that you're going to be competing with guys like me who basically have deeper level, who are going to have a team of younger advisors working for them that are modeled after the same way, which is having very deep, meaningful, and high value relationships with consumers that are also, because of our implementation of technology, have fewer non-client facing bodies in the background doing work and more automation that allows us to basically have deeper meetings, but also keep costs down and then provide this high level of service at the same level of profitability for a lower price and have better levels of profitability than the others. So, I mean, on more than one occasion, I have basically won out business and at the same time undercut them on price. And to the point where I've even had clients say, I don't want you to cut the price. You're worth it. I was paying that guy to do nothing. And my response is, I appreciate that, but I'm not going to charge you more than I do everybody else. So that's the end of that.
And to add to Jason's point before we get to Keegan is, for those, if you're using the blockbuster analogy, Blockbuster was taken over by Netflix, but look at Netflix now and the challenges that they're now, fit into their kind of almost blockbuster, stage of their business model. So again, you constantly have to be evolving and, seeing what's ahead. It's not quite the same, but still you have to stay on your toes.
And I do want to touch on another thing that Jason said with like ecosystem, and I've met 2 financial therapists. It's a very rare certification, and apparently there's a ton. And even when I met with one of these ladies that I think her name's Acile, and she does it here in Canada, and she's moving a little bit into the US, talking about all of this. I mean, if I look back and growing up with a single mother, and who was kind of always not really having a lot of money, it's just her working, and we would have to borrow money from family members to kind of get by. There's a lot of like psychology in your history, because in my teens and into my early 20s, I was very comfortable being like, can you lend me $20? Can you lend me $50? So there's a lot of like psychology to manage, and definitely some of that has to go with advisors, and some of that maybe goes into, let me get an extra certification around these new things that are popping up, some behavioral coaching, or maybe just let me expand my ecosystem. But Keegan, you're definitely a futuristic thinker. Is the human part going to remain important? Is ChatGPT and AI gonna totally take over? I'm a believer that even when we get to the point where the quantum can do a lot, it's still not going to offer the same level of connection for a really long time, at least. What does that future look like, and how do you feel about, I'm out here saying that it is going to happen all at once, and I think it's going to happen all at once within the next 5 years. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to do the land grabs. A lot of people are going to wonder where their business, and a lot of guys that you were there coming in with that balanced, future digital currency. You're looking to have the understanding of that full system, and giving us a little more insight into things that maybe we're not getting access to now. Finance Village is sponsored by Pocket Finance, a technology platform on mobile app and web that improves collaboration and engagement between financial professionals, their clients, and their professional ecosystem. You can check it out at pocketfinance.com, and there is early adopter benefits on the go. And we are also brought to you by FinSense, a digital mortgage company serving all of Canada and ensuring that you get the same trustworthy mortgage advice that you would want your dear mother to get.
Yeah, definitely resonate with the whole gradually then suddenly ethos. This is the nature of how technology makes its way onto the world stage. So as far as future proofing goes, I do like to try and look at trends and see where trends are going, and I like to take a macro or global approach on that. The trends that I see that I'm paying most attention to is the financialization of other continents or other countries, the ones that have not been financially developed at all, or
So the underbanked
minimally.
is the
The underbanked or the debanked
Underbanked.
or the whichever term you want to see, and like what are they adopting and why and how are things working there, and is that business, is there going to be financial services that we can offer to them because we have already gone through significant financialization in the last 50 to 100 years, right? Are they going to be coming to us because they're going to see us as more mature, or are they going to say, oh, you guys did things wrong and we're actually okay doing things the new way here? I don't know. These are just the trends that I see the trends, and I like to speculate on where these things go. Specifically, I see Bitcoin playing a big role. I see central bank digital currencies battling with Bitcoin for the title of money. In my opinion, it's not what we will be calling. It's not who has the money. It's what we will all decide to call money. That is the battle, the intellectual battle that we'll be playing with other countries that are financializing before our eyes. And then you guys spoke all about ChatGPT and whatnot. I think the uncanny valley is quite the chasm to have to cross. And that's the idea that like we're not comfortable with AIs unless they can really pass the Turing test, unless they can convince us that there's a human on the other side, that there's they're providing us a similar same service that a human would be. And especially with respect to economics and finances, I think we're a long ways off there. With that being said, if you go and plug like, hey, what 10 stocks do I go buy right now, or what 10 cryptocurrencies do I go buy right now into ChatGPT, it gives some very peculiar answers, and I always just love seeing the rationale. I have never executed on one of these trades. Just
you don't want to take the gamble for a proof of point.
Yeah.
I will say that ChatGPT, it doesn't convince me. I've used it for a lot of awesome things lately, but I will tell you that if you ask it to write something in a witty or funny way, it is a massive, massive fail.
Really?
Not witty. Yeah. It's not witty at all.
I've done sarcastic.
Worse than dad jokes.
Let me just jump on that entire thing. So keep in mind, we passed the Turing test contextually in more than one occasion. Turing test is a double-blind test whereby you're chatting with a robot and you can't tell the difference if it's human or not, right? Like that's the simplified version of it. But there's been cases where, funnily enough, on dating apps, it's worked. So people could not tell. But anyway, so that said, aside,
was it trying to imitate a girl or a douchey guy though? Because a douchey guy's not.
It can do both. It can do both. Okay. So here's the key. I mean, let's ChatGPT is a lot being made out of it, but let's talk about the limitations of this version 1 of what we're talking about. It gives you one answer and is super confident about that answer, even if it's dead wrong. And I have seen countless dead wrong examples, unfortunately and unfortunately. The other thing is there's no reference. Like, okay, how do I validate this, right? Unlike Google, which is the current standard for search, or any normal standard for search, the reality is that you get a bunch of different possible views. Now, there can be absolutely definitive answers, like what is the atomic weight of what silver, whatever it is. And that is great. I need one answer for that. But when you start asking questions about humanity, then you start running into gray areas of opinion and gray areas of research and conflicting research. You don't get the answer from a summarized ChatGPT. And here's the real one that we should be worried about here. What's the revenue model on this?
You pay a subscription.
You're gonna have to pay a subscription. Let's see. So pay a subscription,
credits, like AWS.
Fair enough. Have fun with that at the consumer level on a scale.
Right.
right? Like the reality is this the future? Is this thing that fully disrupts Google? Well, Google's had something similar to this for years on the shelf and didn't do it because, frankly, A, where's the revenue model? And B, it just did not solve the problem as well as search did, quite honestly.
So this one's going to be contentious. I'm going to let Jason go first this time, get his short, clean version out of the way, and maybe provide a little insight to Keegan, who probably has some insight. I know Stacy's got a good knowledge base of the compensation structure. I've got my own views on it, but I'll let you go first, Jason. So we see many business models. We've got commissions. We've got the hourly rate that I know that you and a lot of advisors think everybody should be able to do the long math and just run towards $150 an hour plus. We've got assets under management. You're taking a percentage of what you manage. And even though I really love subscriptions are popping up a lot more, and I'm going to end up putting a couple of I've seen this really nice advisor up in Banff who caters to people that go outdoors, and he has 3 different levels of subscription. I love it. You got Ocean 6, I believe their name is, a big fancy advisory group out in BC. I love the idea of subscription, at least making it more accessible for the regular, mid-market. What are some of the things you think advisors will need to change in regards to their business model in order to meaningfully compete, or is it just different flavors for different clients? So we'll go Jason and then Keegan and Stacy.
No, look, the reality is that the majority of the industry still caters to everyone and everyone in that order. You ask people who advisors who they serve, and they'll say the following. I service business owners, executives, and high net worth families. To which I always respond, "Oh, so you service people with money? What a shock! Can you tell me what specific niche services you developed around the needs of those specific individual groups?" And oh my God, what are you talking about? Right. So the reality is they're not telling me anything other than the fact that they target a certain level of wealth. Okay. So great. That's fine.
That is a very common theme that I hear as well.
It is the most common
you guys talk
theme.
about niches a lot.
So niches, perfect. There's a solution. The reality is you can't be all things to all people, but you can be almost everything to some people. And knowing who that is and where you deliver the most amount of value is another method of building a moat around your relationship and your business. So for example, and you see a lot more of this out of the US. I'm seeing more of it in Canada now. So my shout out to my friend Arvin, who basically is targeting midwives. He came to me and said, I think I found a niche, midwives.
Again?
Arvin.
Sorry, what exactly is a midwife again?
Oh, midwife. Midwife is someone who basically is an alternative to a doctor in delivering your child. Basically, they go through a natural childbirth process, coach you through that, and basically help. But they also are medically certified to deal with issues when they arise. And
is that a doula? Is that what a doula is?
Yeah, like a doula is.
I've heard wonderful things about these people.
We had a midwife for both our childbirths, and it came highly recommended from a friend of mine who I trust dearly and who's a big science nerd. So we had great experience. But I will say this much. So basically, he's like, I found this niche. They basically are probably going to retire roughly with about $500,000. They've got all these specific challenges around: do they incorporate? Do they not incorporate? Their hours are crazy and all over the place, right? So he's specifically started targeting his messaging around them, and it's been very successful for him thus far. Now, that model, I said to him, look, when you're talking about assets of that model, you have to build a model for cost that's low cost, and you're going to have to basically service X amount in order to get to the level of profitability you need to. But this is a math equation, right? So he's actually he's thinking about his business specifically around who do I specifically provide the most value to, and this guy's literally written blog posts on the effect that menopause has on women in the workforce, and so many women were like, oh my God, yes, because no one talks about that, right? So now, so he's specifically targeting that. And he's specifically building a service offering around their specific needs, and he's building a cost and revenue model that's going to work for them, so that he can fill his capacity up to a certain level, and then he's full, right? And the reality is that when you're a midwife and you go and talk to your friends and they're all using this guy, and he's the one guy, or if you find him online and he's the one guy who actually understands everything that's going on in your life, why do you go somewhere else? That
is such a wonderful specific example, because I don't know any example you could have had with more specificity.
Oh, I'll give you more specificity
because it's so obscure.
Some of the stuff I've seen out of the US blows my mind. My favorite one is competitive fishing champions. Okay.
That would be a good one, because they're usually balling.
Oh, so here's the thing. When other people who don't understand competitive fishing hear that, because you must understand it, they basically have no idea about this. But these guys will win contests and be handed a $500,000 check, right? And then they also get endorsement deals, believe it or not.
I didn't know they did that. I thought they just got a big fish out of it.
No, they get big amounts of money. So there's a guy who grew up in that environment in the US who basically didn't want to do that professionally because he didn't want to ruin his passion. So he became a financial advisor to people who basically are competitive fishing champions. So now it's like, congratulations, your first champion. Here you go. Go talk to him. Why? Because he understands what an endorsement deal looks like. He understands the variability of their earnings. He understands the cost centricities. I've seen ones for, this is more specific, dentists looking to sell their practices to a private equity company in a tri-state area within the next 5 years. Like there's a guy who specializes in dealing with tattoo artists. Like the reality is that there is no unique, like, look, we're all kind of unique butterflies, but we're not. Like we all have people, we all have groups of people we're similar to, and those similarities have specific challenges. And being able to speak the language of those specific challenges makes you someone that cannot be replaced within that community. And the problem is that in Canada, we don't teach that, right? In the industry in the US, they still don't, but you see more and more pressure. But in Canada, we don't talk about that. But the more you basically know about one type of challenge, the better off you're going to be. And just even my own practice, like what kind of emerged with us was I have a penchant for complexity. So I deal with a lot of complex corporate cases and cross-border because I had to get sucked into cross-border. Those are both not for the faint of heart, right? Everybody says they want to deal with business owners. When you get into the actual corporate taxation, restructuring, all the other stuff I get into, it is not for the faint of heart. And then my business partner's got more of a behavioral finance one, which is he is incredibly good at dealing with the anxiety zone that clients deal with 10 years before retirement and 10 years into retirement. They go from like, is this going to be enough? Is this going to be enough? And everything, panic increasing to first they retired. Now I need to watch my portfolio every day because something can go wrong. And getting them through that zone is something he
gives that more hugs than you.
He's got a very strong English accent that basically reassures people that he is very much in charge. I joke that.
Throw an accent into your niche. Throw an accent.
It doesn't hurt. It does not hurt.
Business models, there's a place for everything. You can build it around the niche. You can let it there. Because even with commissions, if I trust you, I'm good with you getting the commission. But as long as, but I like the idea of being able to build it around a niche and cater.
Here's the generalization issue. Okay. So let's look at, you're an advisor and you want to basically carve out your own business, right? So you do everything. Guess what? You're in competition, or you claim to do everything because you can't do everything. You're probably just doing sales. So like, okay, you can get a robo-advisor portfolio for 25 to 50 basis points. We can argue about the efficacy, but it doesn't matter. It's a managed portfolio, fully done, and the total all-in cost is sub 1%. Then your next, you basically have the banks who are the McDonald's of financial services selling everything at low margin and total crap, and then you got basically. So compare that. So if you're a restaurant, you compete with McDonald's or you try to out McDonald's, you're probably not going to be able to do that, especially on price. However, the opposite end of the spectrum is Michelin star restaurants that have one, maybe 2 or 3 locations, right? Boutique. And who do you think has higher margins per location? The 3 Michelin star restaurants in town, or the local McDonald's?
That's true. Keegan.
Yeah.
How do you see people paying for it? Like I said, we got commissions, we got big hourly rates, assets under management. I am going to throw out there, since you're moving in that direction of becoming advisory, I don't see a lot of people, and because you have that, and you see developers rule the world right now, or at least until AI starts to get more influential, but still they'll have their place. I was like, oh geez, I would really love to learn how to develop so I can build anything I want. And then catering to tech people, because tech people are balling out right now. You can have and correct me if I'm wrong, Keegan, I'm paying for developers right now. You can have people at a modest skill set. They could be a junior, they'll call themselves a senior, and then all of a sudden, you're paying an incredible amount. They have a lot of money. It's a good niche right now. But where do you see this? There's lots of different ways you can pay for financial advice. Give me a controversial opinion. Give me an idea of what would you like to see as maybe one of the younger people here on the panel. Where do you see it going? Because the mid-market's being left out. If you don't have money and you can't do the long math of I'm willing to pay $150 an hour, it's a scary thing. And people will, in the mid-market, you kind of turn and run in the other direction unless they've really got some massive intention. What are your thoughts on where the compensation is going?
Yeah, there's a kind of a conversation that needs to happen with a certain young demographic around value and what exactly value is. It doesn't.
You want to say a certain Gen Z or something, or millennials, don't you?
I don't really want to pigeonhole any particular generation, and each generation is mixed and different, even amongst themselves, right? We can't make a broad generalization. and say that all generations behave like this, or all generations. With that being said, like within their lifetime, we've had like a number of crises take place, and there's a tremendous lack of trust in our financial and banking infrastructure, and I don't blame them. I'm among them. When talking about what value is, and you're like, well, I'm going to make you money. It's like, well, to me, that's actually not all that valuable. Like for me, it's getting my time back. It's about having autonomy. It's like if you're a financial advisor, I actually do think that's your realm of expertise, because like money is the door or the gateway through which those things you can help me achieve those things, and then you've provided me with real value. I'm also in like a bit of a weird situation with respect to financial advisement, because my specialty is in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. These are perceived as high risk areas. I agree with that. Cryptocurrency is high risk. I disagree that Bitcoin's high risk, but that's a different conversation. Like if I was approached and asked to do financial advisement with respect to like DeFi or cryptocurrency, then like that person is going to have to be able to stomach those the volatility, and that's not a thing. That's like a really small group of people actually. So I've gravitated towards a model called value for value, meaning if I provide you value, then like I leave it to you. I leave my donation box open. I make it easy for you to compensate me according to how much you think that I have provided you with value.
You clever little son of a biscuit. I actually did one time a bake sale at one of the big banks, because I was like the group baker. There's the 300 people in the center. And I decided on 2 different occasions, one time to do it by price, which was a very reasonable price, one time to do it by donation. Donation destroyed it. So there's something to be said for that.
There's been several experiments to prove that, but
I just kind of put that the onus on the individual. Like I do want to open up the things I have to say and my thoughts to the widest group of individuals, and like I am targeting a global audience, and especially people who don't have money or are under significant financial oppression. So like in those cases, if they can't pay me, no problem. I still want to be able to provide them with value. I don't want to leave them out of the group of people that I could potentially help.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I, as far as I've known, and I've experienced this myself when I've done a number of charitable things in the past. My experience, and I think various studies I've read, people with less money, if you leave it up to a donation situation, are often willing to give you more. Based on what they have
behind that
type of thing.
I mean, that correlates with charitable giving. The disproportionately more is given by those with less, but comparatively based on wealth.
Interesting. So sorry, finish your thought there, Keegan.
Yeah, I mean, to top it all off, so I'm not credentialed. I don't have a credentials as a financial advisor, so I'm actually just not qualified to take your money and manage it for you. So as a part of this, it's my responsibility to not actually enter into a contractual engagement with you, and teach you the skills that you need to know to do it yourself. That's part of like a Bitcoin centric ethos as well. It's like you should have the knowledge to take responsibility for your finances and do things yourself. Now that being said, like I'm 100% willing to recognize that not everyone can be a plumber, and you need to call the plumber because it's more efficient than you learning how to go be a plumber. Right? We need financial advisors to handle significantly complicated situations with respect. Like when you have lots of money, it becomes difficult to handle lots of money. And like I think those are, and like in the West, in North America, we're among the top in the entire world. We have more money than anyone else. So it makes sense that we have a lot of financial advisors active here and less in under financialized areas in the world.
Well, one thing I'll mention before I pass it over to Stacy is, even though we're supposedly tip top in the world, the average financial literacy score of people in G20 countries is 48% out of 100. Yeah. So we're the best of the worst, I suppose. And there's certainly a great case to be made. But I love the value for value model. I'm going to be thinking about that. I'm going to be Googling it. I'm going to be asking ChatGPT about its thoughts on it. But Stacy, I'm very interested in your opinion. Tell me where you'd like to see it go, where you see it going, where you think it could be interesting. What are your thoughts on Keegan's value for value?
I think it's important because I think that in absence of perceived value, people will do business with who they trust and like. And that takes time to build up that trust and build up that likability, right? So the goal of an advisor is to be likable, but likable in what area? Jason talked about, niche markets. And I think it's important that you become a subject matter expert with a specific group of people where you know and understand their key pain points, and you are I always ask advisors, are you your own client? Because if you're your own client, you better understand the pain points of the people that you want to serve. And, you're able to really get into the weeds of what problems or challenges they're facing now and what perceived problems could be, coming up ahead that you have the ability to resolve for them or mitigate for them as they go through it. Part of the challenge is that there's two types of advisors that I think has arrived in the industry over the years. It's transactional advisors who will quickly sell you stuff and they're extremely knowledgeable at the stuff that they sell. And then there's individuals who are advisors who may give you advice on the transaction that they sell. And then there's business owners that offer financial services as a service to their clients, which means they have a business model, they have a targeted group of individuals for which they serve. So the pool is large. And within that pool, they have narrowed it down to a niche a group of individuals to which they know and understand their problems and have built a service model to serve these individuals. So when they're building their marketing strategy, they are talking to a specific group of people, weeding out the noise, and they're talking to, Jason says he talks to, complex business owners. So all his messaging is geared towards those types of individuals. Now, if other business owners come to Jason to do business, Jason has the ability to do business with these people because those are easier cases. He can provide them with the level of service that they need, but they do realize his area of expertise, and that's what they will recommend. So therefore, the business model is built on that. So you have your top clients that may require higher touch points. That requires a different business model if you're fee for service. Then you have your mid-tier clients that requires a different level of service, and then your bottom-tier clients. But remember, it's a revolving door. So you always have to build in for your top clients, but your top clients may be based on service, or decumulation become your lower servicing clients, and those clients are moving up. So it's a rotational, it's a cyclical type of system for how you should be building your business model, right? Keegan talked about certification or designations. There's a lot of people with designations that they have designations. It doesn't mean that they continue to seek.
And they can still be transactional.
And they are professional, but they may not have gone beyond just getting the designation and continuously seek, advanced learning to use that knowledge with a specific group of people and build out a process that really applies to somebody that they can see the value in. And that being said, it determines that, where does compensation come in? Well, if you're transactional, you're not building much value into your book of business. So when you come to retire, there's not much you're going to get for that because you stripped all the value out of that business a long time ago. And then there is, building a business model where it is business infrastructure. You have compliance, you have CRMs, you have, policy and service procedures. You have a methodology. You have an onboarding system from the minute you pick up the phone to say, hi, hello, my name is Stacy Brooks, to thank you for becoming a client. And you're continuously serving them, through the longevity of that relationship. It makes sense, right? So, people are going to want to know, what is your methodology? And the methodology is really what's going to be the driving force of how you're really able to justify your costs moving forward. Remember, information is a commodity today, but how that information applies to each individual person is going to be based on your knowledge, your expertise, and your ability to deliver on that. So it's not just about, I have access to the markets. Everybody has access to the market. How do you use that access to really solve the problems that are relevant to me? Two 54-year-olds or 54-year-olds, but they're at different life stages or different business stages. So it's how do you use that information that it applies to the client? I was listening to a webinar with Bill Bacher, and he says, your best or your most ideal client is a client who's your ideal client is what's paying somebody else, what's being underserved. So it's how you deliver your value proposition that speaks to your audience, your targeted audience, is how you're going to really justify your value. A woman likes Coach purses. She doesn't necessarily have Coach money in that purse every day, but for perceived value, she will stand in line for 3 hours to buy that Coach purse because it's what she sees as perceived value. So the value really comes from advice, not from the product, because a product is the means to an end, and your advice is going to structure that product to really solve their problem.
And you focused in a little bit on something I really want to bring up. And I get a big battle about this with a lot of people in my life. I did a LinkedIn survey. It was 50-50, but I'm just going to say I have a very strong opinion on it. It's in regards to the methodology that you talked about, Stacy. And I understand to an extent that we want a client at some level to show some commitment, but getting them to fill in a 20-page form as opposed to calling them. And I have to constantly have this battle with a lot of people in my life. I'll give you an example. There's a certain realtor somewhere in Canada that I deal with. We exchange a lot of business, and he sends the 3 or 4 names to someone, and one of them sends them a form to fill out. The other one doesn't call them back, and then they get a chance to talk to me, who sounds enthusiastic, sounds like they care. I'm letting them give the information verbally. Of course, I'll ask them, do you prefer to fill out a form? But most people, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, don't want to fill out forms anymore. This is an older technique. Yes, of course, we want people to prove that they are willing to take finances seriously and go through the effort and be worthy of our time. At the same time, they want to quickly build that rapport and the trust gap. So I'll let everybody chop me up on that real quick. I know you want to start, Jason, but call your bloody clients and stop sending them some forms.
But you're right. But I think it speaks to something completely different. Go back to value proposition. We talked about value, but here's the problem with the industry. Everyone defines themselves by how they get paid. I'm a fee-only advisor. I'm a fee-for-service advisor, blah, 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 blah. That's insanity. Name another industry that does that to themselves.
You can do it well if you're going value for value, because that's very speculative.
No, but here's the thing. I see that's part of where he's getting to, right? This is indicative of an industry that has not had to discuss its value, approve it or define it for a very long time, because things were very, very simple for them, and it is nonsense. Can you imagine if your dentist was like, by the way, I'm a per treatment billing dentist. So what do you do for my teeth, man? Like that's what I want to know, right? Like, but meanwhile, and all the messaging, and frankly, all the messaging out there by robo-advisors, by banks, it's all about fees. It's all about fees, because you know what? Because they only know how to compete on a commodity basis. So that's the opportunity, is not to be a commodity. Now, to get back to your point on the entire form filling experience, here's the problem.
I know some people prefer it.
No, the vast majority of, here's the thing, right? The vast majority of technological implementation that's happened in our industry has been to make the administrative burden reduced in some way, shape, or form, right? And that's largely when the focus has been, and to make things self-serve. No one sits back and thinks about, the number of times I've lost out of people, it's like, oh, that's a really wonderful tool for my staff, who then basically gets to send a DocuSign. And then if anything's wrong, the staff, they can't edit the DocuSign. So they got to get back to us. And then basically we got to redo the entire thing, start the process over again. The industry does not design experiences for consumers. They don't, right? I mean, and it's shameful, because you look at, like, I'll give Roll Simple a shout out in this regard. Whether you like him or hate him, their onboarding experience is clean, simple, simple. Like award-winningly clean, right?
It is a dream. I've heard people say, like, I got a lot of respect for it.
Like literally from downloading the app to funding your account in under 4 minutes, right? And all the stuff. Now I'll debate that they should spend more time on risk tolerance capacity, but it's a different story altogether. The reality is that even if but the entire experience, like, built for speed, built for simplicity, built for cleanness, right? They did that, 8 years ago, 9? Like, I don't know. It's getting a little bit long in the tooth. Probably getting close to 10. And yet the rest of the industry still can't get their heads out of their butts on this sort of thing. When I keep on, we still don't, the industry in general does not have good client onboarding tools. Instead, we have forms that get populated as PDFs and sent out to clients. That is utter nonsense. Or again, like you said, forms sent to clients. No one, who the heck is, like, why, like, if you are on the other side of this, if your grandmother's on the other side of this, you think she appreciates the lack of effort? And you know what really drives me nuts? What drives me up the wall is when someone sends me a form with blanks in areas that I know they have the information already.
Yes.
Like, oh, thank you for telling me that you didn't think to bother or didn't care to fill out any of this for me and save me the time. You just thought it was easier to download work to me. Or 6 different forms that don't talk to each other, and I got to input my name in all 6 different forms. Like,
some of the fields don't even make sense, because we always say to people when we do send forms, fill it out to the best of your ability, which means fill out what you can,
Like-
and then we'll end up having a conversation on the phone anywhere. So I have to explain it to you that I could have just taken stuff verbally anyways.
Yeah.
We are
Like-
thinking about that simple journey, I will say, with the pocket finance technology we're building and making
Yeah.
sure that those pre-populated fields, those are the two things we're really trying to focus on.
Yeah, and I've basically gotten tired of waiting for dealerships and everybody else to do it, and I'm now working with between Salesforce and a questionnaire software called Precise FP to do this bidirectional communication, so that when a client gets sent has already filled me the information once, right? They got to do it the first time, right? But once I have it, I don't want them to ever edit it again unless something needs to be changed, right? Like. So I've already done that with my annual KYC update forms. Those are almost live and ready to go. I'm planning on going further down the rabbit hole, but it's instead of getting a form, client gets a secure link. They click on that link. They get a video of me basically explaining what it is that they're doing and why we need it. They then basically get a secure code to log in, and then they're presented with the information that I already have on them. Oh, geez, my postal code's wrong. Boom, boom, boom. Next screen, same thing. Oh, I'm asking for something new. There's a video explaining why I'm asking for this.
I was going to ask you if there was other places you could put videos, because I'm a big fan
anywhere.
And what a great way to add your
context.
personal human touch back in,
Thank you.
beyond the explanation.
To demonstrate the fact and the care and attention. And then boom, once they hit finish, which is like literally if nothing's wrong or nothing's changed, it's a 2 to 3 minute workflow. Boom, nothing's finished. They get a DocuSign envelope. They basically sign off on it, and it goes. I've even got it forwarding everywhere it needs to go in the back end. The point is that project with no code took me, on and off in about 2 weeks in the evenings, right? I could have done that start to finish if I committed myself in probably about 4 days, quite honestly. But the reality is that like, this is what I'm talking about needs to happen. Our experience, our technology needs to stop worrying about just making us efficient and making the experience suck for the consumer. It needs to worry more about making the consumer easing them through the painful parts of this, making the experience positive, using the opportunity to deepen the relationship, right? I saw an advisor who basically has, I'm planning on doing this myself at some point. He has like all kinds of different Calendly links for different types of meetings. And what do you think happens with the reminders? It's not just a reminder. It's a reminder with an embedded video and documents to basically help provide consumer education as they come. Oh, we have our meeting. We're going to be talking about your estate plan. Boom. First confirmation. Thank you so much. We're moving to talk about your estate plan on the day in question. This is what you need to be ready for. We're going to talk about some very negative things. I apologize for that, but we have to do that. The goal is to make sure that if anything happens to you, that your loved ones have as little stress around the administration of this as possible, and we're leaving behind the best legacy possible. Something as simple as that. And then the follow-up email a week later would basically have here's the things you need to bring with us, or the things you need to think about in advance of this. Here's a checklist. But using that small touch point, instead of saying, yeah, I know I got a meeting. It's like, how do I deliver value? If I am at the second I touch a client, every time I touch a client, how do I enhance that experience? How do I? It
all sounds obvious, but what percentage of advisors I would submit to you less than 25% are doing
very little percentage of advisors do it, Sheldon. I worked with advisors for over 20 years, and it's surprising when you walk into advisors' offices that have been around for 5 years to 30, 40 years, 50 years plus, and you ask, what is the client experience? There is really no client experiences. I met them. They were lovely. I was nice. I did my job properly. Awesome. And then I asked for a referral. What made you referable?
I never ask for referrals. I get them all the time. I'll tell you why. Be referable. Be referable.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, in my space, there's a gentleman who's really well known in the space. He runs I Love Mortgage Brokering. He's got a new mortgage broker, Scott Petford. And he had a podcast recently I listened to, and I had a quick conversation with him about it. And we're very focused on in our own practice and our rebranding as FinSense, as our mortgage company. If your process is, if I'm surprised at how easy that was, we can't meet expectations anymore. We have to exceed them. Because the expectations, unfortunately, have been set pretty low by a lot of the legacy institutions and methodologies and customer experiences. If you can just make an amazing experience, touching on some of those points that Jason and Stacy just named, you're going to be getting referrals more than you can handle. The lady whose entire business that he was talking about, that runs his brokerage or his book of business, she didn't even have time to market because she had so much coming in from word of mouth because the process was so exceptional and client centric. So Stacy, you've got a practice. You are a client. Do you want to fill in forms?
No.
Do you want to fill in any forms at all?
The reality is no, because administration is part of the job, but you want to automate it in a way that it's the least amount of your time that you're using, but you're remaining compliant, right? So how do you optimize technology and only utilize the required amount of time needed to complete the parts that are absolutely necessary to remain compliant? So if you already have a robust CRM system that has pertinent information that is good, because the reality is lots of advantages of a CRM, but it's more of a digital Rolodex versus an informational tool that has, proper fields that kind of match what an advisor would, what would be required for a document for, ongoing or existing business. That would be helpful. So if you're able to use that information that you already have that can pre-populate,
tokenize those fields, get that pre-population.
Exactly. Yes. And then really what you're sending to the client is that, here's what we have on you. As Jason said, please update any information that may be incorrect, wrongly stated, all of that stuff. And what we don't have, this is what we require you to complete, sign, and send back to us. The whole process really should not take more than 10 minutes of your time. And if you say to a client, we require this, it's going to take about this amount of your time, they're like, okay, 10 minutes, no problem. I can do that before I go do something else. So the more you can create automation to really pre-populate a lot of the administrative stuff, you're then able to have time to provide greater value and enhance the client experience. And that alone, reducing, hurdles or stress or just barriers to doing business. Oh my goodness.
What a perfect segue you just added to the end of that for me to tweak it a little bit for Keegan and make it a little more tougher, because I know he's my very futuristic thinking guy, and I leave this a little bit out for my conspiracy theorists. At some point, it becomes so easy. You look at different companies. At some point, we want to press. I love the idea of a one-button future conceptually. An advisor presses one button. This is the thing that we're doing. We're applying for some whole life insurance at Equitable or term or whatever, and the client receives a notification. They press one button. It's fully populated with not just their personal data, but their financial data, and even stored in a separate silo securely with some type of digital identity place. Your health information. It's making everybody's life a lot easier. It's making sure people are taking action on things they typically delay to go get that information. How do we get that level of simplicity but without giving all the power to the government where they could just turn us off, Keegan?
Yeah, it's this has been a very interesting conversation for me to listen to, because you're talking about forms and compliances and buttons, and the contrast here is that I don't typically hit any buttons and I don't fill out any forms when I'm buying Bitcoin. It just kind of happens. I don't have to ask for permission to mine Bitcoin. I don't have to ask for permission to hold it in my wallet. There's no permission to transfer it. It's just seamless. So you're talking about how do we reduce, and my mind.
But that's that digital ID, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you meaning like
it's beautiful and scary at the same time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you need, like, you're taking responsibility as an individual for the quality or the storage or the safekeeping of your assets / funds. Like, that's what Bitcoin. That's at the heart of Bitcoin, right?
Which is terrifying for someone like me, because you take the most important things in my life, like my wallet and my keys, and then my glasses, and you can ask my wife. I'm on a constant.
And you're gonna lose them.
I'm on a constant search.
Yeah, and so if it represents your life savings, those keys, and you lose them, and then it's just gone, like that's quite scary. So I do actually take a bit of a more balanced perspective on this, and I do think that there needs to be financial services built up around Bitcoin, around cryptocurrencies, because not everyone is like me. Not everyone's going to go and secure their keys and go to extraordinary measures, right? And so then we're introducing counterparty risk into the situation, meaning like, you're going to hold my keys for me. You're going to be my custodian. You're going to be my Bitcoin bank. You're going to be my crypto bank. And what's that mean? Well, it means that you have to comply to all the same rules and regulations that regular banks and financial institutions must comply with now. And it's like, that makes sense to me. We don't want FTX to happen every year. And yet here we are. That's what happens every couple years. We get an FTX explosion, a Mt. Gox, a Quadriga CX, right? And that's because these people aren't following rules and regulations. Those particular institutions do need more forms. They do need more eyes on the situation. Yeah. So that there's
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a
all
very
right.
interesting.
Before you pointed out the most single hilarious example you could have ever thought to point out, which is insurance at a push of a button, a whole life insurance. So let me just tell you a little story. In 1951, the first UNIVAC computer was delivered by train car, and I don't know where it went.
Well, I'm not saying you don't do the KYC.
No, but my point is that I will
implementation.
bet you anything. I'll bet you $100 that one of them is still in use in Waterloo right now in insurance policies. Because the reality is that industry has never upgraded a system to save their lives. And like I constantly, like daily want to rip my hair out at the lack of access to information I get from these people. It is insane that in this day and age that is this bad. But so
and I've run into that on the technology side too for aggregation. I mean, the insurance companies, I'll be the one to say it because I'm not offering any insurance. You all need a spanking. You need to catch up to the times. It's
the irony is they were one of the leaders in technology early on because they had all these complex calculations to run. The problem is, as soon as they basically got there and said like, wow, we digitize all this. Okay, we're done for the next 100 years.
But thankfully, I know people like Stacy advocate for innovation within the insurance side. I got two quick questions for you guys. These are quick and easy, short answers from everyone. There's a lot of noise out there. Where are some of the best places financial advisors and professionals can stay on top of latest trends, technologies in the industry to remain competitive, future-proof their business, hone in, without the noise there? I'm going to just quickly plug for Grant Hicks. Grant Hicks is an amazing resource, always publishing great stuff. He's always talking about these important things that we've talked about during this collaboration, niches, innovation and technology, always publishing great articles. So everybody give him a follow on LinkedIn. Keegan, what's things interesting maybe that you look at for looking at those trends and technologies?
Sure. So I'll start off with the shameless plug. I write a newsletter on Substack. It's my name, keeganfrancis.substack.com. That's by and large the best place to reach out to me. And then I'm Bitcoin Keegan basically everywhere on the internet. So you can plug that into Twitter and find me, message me. I'm always open. I love thoughtful conversation and discussion. I'm an avid learner, so I'm constantly looking for new places to expand my conception of where the world is and where it's going, especially from a macro and local economic view. The people that I listen to on a semi-regular basis, or read rather, is Ray Dalio, Robert Breedlove, couple of podcasts that are Bitcoin only. There's one called Bitcoin Audible. Guy just reads a bunch of content from the Bitcoin community, and there's a genuinely different perspectives than a couple of perspectives that were shared here on this podcast. So if it's only to expand and see what other people are talking in the world, I would recommend go checking that stuff out.
Awesome. Stacy.
So at minimum, I think financial advisors that are part of, at minimum, the Advocates, the Financial Association of Canada, to at least go to their minimum.
Oh no, you said the dirty word.
We're gonna have words.
No. Nobody can ever bring up Advocates with Jason on the call.
Look at their DigiCat catalog to at least see tools that you're probably not even using in your business, right? So for their DigiCat catalog,
the tools are good. The tools are good.
But their DigiCat catalog to at least identify foundational tools for your business operations from an adoption perspective, right? Knowledge is potential power. Applied knowledge is power. So I think it's important that, you find, financial professionals that you have an alignment with and follow them either on their Twitter or LinkedIn, where they write articles, or any other social platform, because again, it's subjective. I follow Michael Kitches because I like has great stuff, and I always take from there what's applicable to the Canadian marketplace and then share that with my advisors. I also listen to this one weekly Zoom call from out of the US. It's Advisorist with Jeremiah Damaris. He is actually Quebec business entrepreneur who caters to the financial services industry or financial advisors in Canada and the US. And it's always about how can he help them, teach, build, and grow their practice using sales, LinkedIn Sales Navigator to niche down, be specific, carve out your market, and just offer great advice. So I think you always have to be thinking, how can I grow my business? Because there's no one size fits all. What is required in urban Canada is going to be slightly different in, rural Canada or, outside of the greater urban centers. So, there's no one size fit all. But first, who am I? Who do I serve and why do I serve them? Who else is like me? Because, there's more than enough clients to go around. The average advisor can probably responsibly handle about 150 families. So therefore, beyond that, they're probably over capacity. So there's plenty of room for everybody to serve their clientele. But just follow people that are like-minded like you that you can learn from. Go to industry events. There's always something to take away. There's the Canada Sales Congress. There's so many other events out there that you can learn from, masters of their art. And, just continuously read. I don't subscribe to any one thing, but I'm always listening to a whole lot of things because you don't need all the information, but you certainly need one or two things for areas that you find that there's gaps in your business, and this information can be applicable.
Because you did touch on like-minded, which is true, because you have to, and I've learned that the hard way in the last 8 months of my life. I mean, you have to be very sure that the people that you have around you are actually like-minded. But I would also endorse that, because you and Stacy and Keegan, you both alluded to, kind of getting a little bit listening to things that don't necessarily align with your thoughts as well. A lot of us, and I'm going to use religion as an example, are born into religion. And if you only ever explore that thing, then, how much true sense of everything you're getting, because you just always are like, well, this is kind of the lottery of, this, I want to be in the like-mind thinking. I think we should listen to things that challenge. There's a great debate, and again, we don't have to go too deep on that one either, Jason, on infinite banking or be your own banker or whatever it's called. There's a lot of lovers and there's haters but is it fair for me to say, just give me a nod or a shake of your head, guys, that we should be open to listening to things that don't necessarily at this moment in time align with our current thinking? Because I believe,
of course,
that when we do, it's either going to give us an expanded view or it's going to reinforce what we already believed in a very healthy way.
Yes, but words and evidence are two separate things. And that's the difference. Okay. Yes. Is that more often than not, it's words and it's not backed up by anything. Right. And just had a giant debate about dividend investing on Twitter. If anyone wants to check it out, man, Mark McGrath, my buddy, basically started one, and that was a disaster yesterday. And it was all, here's all the evidence from academia and all this other stuff and basic logic. And it was all fired back by, well, I feel this way. It's like, look, fine, but that's not proof. All right. So one word about advocates. You did get specific. I am friends with people on the tech committee, but I will say, do not join that organization unless you want to support the organization that has stood in the way of fiduciary responsibility, transparency, unbundled fees, and through their lobbying made a disaster out of title protection in this country. So full stop. There's a reason why the IAFP exists, which I'm on the board of. There's a reason why that FPAC exists, which I helped co-found, and in large part is because of the mess created in part by them. Anyway, so
we do need these voices, and I am going to have somebody from advocates on here someday
if they're willing to come on and debate me on their history of regulatory affairs, please set that up. Good luck to them agreeing.
I'll definitely have my celebrity boxing matches on this podcast on occasion.
Yeah.
So
anyway, so where to listen? Where to listen? Very quickly.
Yes.
So follow me. Yeah. So it's my website, jasonpereira.ca. That's my all my content site. Honestly, follow me on Twitter. Get on Twitter if you're a financial professional, because there's an incredible subculture there of some of the sharpest minds in the industry, especially from the US, that will make you better. The reality is that, we named Michael Kitces, who cannot get enough credit for the work that he does because he has more education out there than anyone. But you have guys like Jamie Hopkins, who's also a well-known person in the U.S. in retirement accumulation. My friends Brian Portnoy and Daniel Crosby, who are huge in the behavioral sciences space. You have Samantha Russell at 20/10, who is like the guru on advisor content marketing. The reality is that there's a handful of great people in Canada that produce information to make advisors better. There is a wellspring of it in the US. And I will say, yes, go to industry events. I will say, unfortunately, not many industry events in Canada are worth going to. I've been to many, and I've been disappointed by most. I will, of course, support the bigger ones for like STEP, who basically will make my brain hurt when it comes to technology, when it comes to tax, the IAFP conference, which I still think is the best planning conference in the country. And go to US ones. I cannot say this enough. It will open up your horizons and make you understand that what you see in Canada is not normal. We are well behind so many other jurisdictions.
So
in
what
the
kind
world.
of value
It
are
is
they going to get
shameful.
as a Canadian advisor?
Because
going down to the
it's
US?
not.
I didn't expect to hear that.
This is
But
what
I'm
I tell
interested.
everybody. Your eyes will open up. So case in point, the first one I ever went to was the FPA conference, the national one. And there is a subgroup there for international advisors. There's over 100 international advisors coming from at least 20 to 30 different countries. And you get to see that, wait a second, these people all have the same challenges and differences. And like the industry is the same across the world. We're also all kind of on different development curves, all kind of heading into the same direction of professionalism. And you get to see that, we are laggards in so many areas compared to even developing countries in the world. And we get to see that basically, as much as everybody thinks that their situation is not great, we're a lot worse than a lot of them. We got some things that are better, but in general not. So that's one piece of it. Look, the practice management stuff is universal. Right. The behavioral finance stuff is universal. The how to market your business is universal. They want to start talking about the efficiencies of Roth 401k rollovers. Look, that's the session you skip, because unless you're in cross-border, you don't care about that. But like the FPA National Conference, like I said, great for cross-border. I'm doing Future Proof this year, which is all about specifically future-proofing your business. Carson Excel's got a wonderful reputation for being one of the best in practice management. Jolt is a marketing conference that apparently is only a second year and second to none. What was the one? Shift is the other one, specifically on behavioral, on coaching and whatnot. Like there are so many conferences in the US that you can just cherry pick some of the best ones. You will go there and you will basically be blown away by the quality of speaker in comparison, the content, and understanding that, hey, you know what? You don't have to, I will say this, you want to future-proof yourself as a Canadian advisor? Just start looking what's happening in the US. That's easily a decade ahead of us. You do that,
Well, rest
you just
assured,
copy
Canada's pretty far behind Europe and the US, that's for certain.
in every
So we're going to
capacity.
finish up with a most important question you guys will probably ever be asked. And we're going to let Stacy go first, and then Jason and Keegan. And you don't even have to explain yourself if you don't want to. You can just drop it, or you can give a quick 1 or 2 sentence explanation. This is a real life scenario. All right. You have $10 million. I've changed it a little on you just to mess with you. When you have $10 million and you have to invest it and decide today, you've got 3 options. A, whoever happens to be Barack and Michelle Obama's financial advisor, but there's a 50% chance that this advisor is part of the Illuminati. And I don't know what happens with your money then. B, Warren Buffett. He's equipped with only an abacus and no current news since 2015, and you suspect that he may not like you, but you're not sure. Or C, Yoda, but he's accidentally taken 5 grams of mushrooms. Stacy, which one are you going with?
Jason talked about evidence-based. I'm just going to go with Warren Buffett.
And I'm going to give you guys the answer from ChatGPT to this question once we're done. So you're going with Warren Buffett, conventional wisdom?
Conventional wisdom.
Jeez, no respect for Yoda, eh? Okay. Keegan.
Yeah, I'm a Yoda guy. That's an easy one. This is a no-brainer.
Right? Because even if he did accidentally take 5 grams of mushroom, he has whatever those Jedi powers are.
Exactly.
Just poops them right
There was
out,
no
he's good to
stock
go.
market in a time long ago in a galaxy far, far away. At least none that we saw.
Okay.
And
Jason, what's your choice?
so, given the Illuminati isn't a thing, I'll take the person who's not on mushrooms and actually has information.
Illuminati is definitively not a thing.
No, it's not a thing.
Oh, there's
It
anything
was
worse than somebody that believes every conspiracy and somebody that believes none. We got to have some balance.
The Illuminati was a thing back when it was a thing in like the 1600s, and it was a small thing. It's not a real thing.
Okay, so which one are you going with?
I'm taking the real person that actually has information. Also, how old's Buffett?
99, I think.
80? 90?
No, he's like
90 something.
He's close.
Warren
Well,
Buffett
it's funny because
is
ChatGPT
92.
agreed with what you said. It says the Illuminati is not real, so eliminate that one. Then it said that Yoda. It said mushrooms will impair your judgment, so it didn't give Yoda any respect on his Jedi skills whatsoever.
Why is it?
I haven't actually seen any Star Wars movies, so I don't know if he actually had Jedi skills or if he just taught them to other people or what. But I just feel like there's something. I feel like I would go with Yoda.
I went with the mushrooms more than I went with Yoda.
Oh, that's messed up. Okay. But you know what? Because you came to the value for value conclusion, I respect your answer. And I do want to show a lot of respect for having courage to go and do business like that. I think that's a very beautiful, wonderful thing. All right. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Sheldon. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheldon.
This is brought to you by Castflex Media, a podcast production company. And if you want to start or have a podcast that you want to make better, Castflex has the flex you need to make it easy and awesome.